blast to have you on this forum, Geetika.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Being connected with ILM is always a pleasure for me. I have so many memories of the college, and I really feel that whatever I am today is because of you people. Thank you so much. So I think I'll start with giving an introduction of what intellectual property rights are. I have been working with the patent. Basically, I'm more focused on the patent and design thing. So I will focus my presentation also more on that. I understand that most of you do not understand these terms and things like that. I'm sure most of you would have seen Three Idiots, so you know what a patent is. So, but I think I'll give a small brief introduction and then maybe in detail go how being a biotech student you can relate to a patent. I'm sure you must not have seen how a biotech patent will look like. What exactly can you claim in a biotech invention? What can be claimed, what cannot be claimed, and things like that. So, first of all, intellectual property rights. You must have heard about property rights. You have a house that is your property, and that is a property that you own, and you have certain rights with regard to limiting other people from entering that house. You own that property, you can sell that property. In a similar fashion, this is something which is immovable, which is tangible. There are other kind of properties as well which you cannot see with your naked eye, but you have certain rights over those properties. For instance, I invent, I'll give a very layman language example. Suppose I am the first one who invented a four-stroke engine. Because I was the first person who invented that engine, I should have certain rights over those engines. I should have the right to sell that to other parties, and in return, the benefit should come to me. That is, that with my intellect, I have invented something. There should be some prize, some reward given to me, so that people are encouraged to invest more into R&D, to apply their intellect more. If I am not given any benefit of the work that I do, I will not have any enough encouragement or motivation to take that work forward. So it is very important why this intellectual property right actually began is that people wanted to encourage scientists, researchers to research in the field, develop new items, develop new artistic work for which they can be awarded. So if I invent something, I have the right over it. It can be protected by patent, it could be protected by a trademark right, it could be protected by a copyright right. Different rights are there for different kinds of work. For most of the intellectual kind of work that we do as engineering students, it's usually patent because the end product is usually a product or a process. So without waiting much, this was just a background to explain you what intellectual property is. It's an untangible kind of property, at times tangible also. Maybe it leads to a product which for which certain rights are given to the inventor of that property. So it's just a tool for knowledge management. Whatever knowledge we have in this world that needs to be streamlined, that needs to be awarded, and intellectual property rights are just a kind of a tool for that intellectual property management. Now there are different kinds of intellectual properties. One is a patent, for which if you have a product or if you have a process, you can have rights over that product and process. That's the patent act. There could be a trademark. For instance, you might have a trademark for Louis Vuitton, or you may have a trademark for, say, a Big Bazaar. So those are trademarks. You invented a name which became so famous that people recognize you with that name. So you need protection for that. Anybody in the world cannot use Big Bazaar and open a store. Big Bazaar is recognized and it has its brand value, and it needs to be protected. Similarly, there is a copyright act. Suppose you have a literary work or an artistic work or a musical composition. All these needs to be protected, and there needs to be a right. Basically, composers and artistic people use this right to protect the work that they do. Even the medicines have prescribing information. Even those are copyright protected, and a Novartis prescribing information cannot be used by Abbott. Similarly, there is a design act. You make a design of say a bus or the kind of two-wheeler that are there in the market. It could be a computer interface. It could be an Apple laptop, which have a specific design, and those designs can also be protected under the design act. Trade secrets are not protected under any act, but if suppose Coca-Cola has a manufacturing formula which is only known to certain employees of the company, they may be under some confidentiality agreement that they cannot share that secret outside the company, and that is a trade secret which is within the company. So nobody outside that company is allowed to know that formula. Similarly, circuits, this is a newer technology. Various IC circuits are there. They have certain designing layouts and things like that. This is not that relevant with biotech sector, but for electronics and communication, all these are protected under the Designs and Integrated Circuit Act. Then let me tell you one thing, that there is so much research going on in the plant biotechnology sector. Plants, animals as such cannot be patented because they are something which are created by God. And even if you make a recombinant plant, or you make a transgenic plant, or you make a heat resistant plant, salt resistance and things like that, those cannot be protected under the Patents Act because those are prohibited, and they cannot have you cannot have a patent right on a plant that you create. So there's a Plant Variety Act which is separately created to encourage various breeders and plant variety workers, and all those varieties can be protected under the Plant Variety Act. So these are different kinds of intellectual property rights which are available in India. These are specifically with regard to India, and all those help in protection of various kinds of intellectual property developed. For instance, if you see, there are two kinds of buses over here. Both of them have different kinds of designs, and if you see their head, maybe their lights are also slightly different, their head is also slightly different. So both of them have been protected under a different design number. So both of them have a different design, and the design which is owned by the design number 188299 cannot copy the design which is owned by the other company. So this is a simple example of what a design can protect. Similarly, there can be a design for a two-wheeler, or there can be a design for a chair as well, and any other thing which a designer can create. Even a building, for that matter of fact, if it has a particular design, can be protected under the design. So a design simply can be a new and original design in the form of a shape, a configuration, a pattern, kind of thing which can be on a substance in the form of a shape or configuration can be protected under the Design Act. Something of the kind which I showed you in the form of a bus design or two-wheeler design, things like that. Similarly, if you consider about trademarks, like I told you, Big Bazaar, nobody else can use that. Similarly, there can be GE, and GE is represented in a particular fashion. Whenever you will see this, you will know that this is a bulb or a LED belonging to GE. Similarly, Mitsubishi. Even if you do not, even if Audi is not written, and you see those four circles, you recognize that yes, this car is a Audi manufactured car. Similarly, a Maruti Suzuki symbol and things like that, which you can relate in your day-to-day life. All these are trademark protected. And other companies, if they use it without the permission of the owner, can be sued against in court of law. Like I told you, copyright can be for any artistic work. Copyright can be for a musical composition, for a song, for lyrics, and it can also be for other kind of artistic work which are not literary or dramatic. It can also be for a sculpture adaptation. So these are all different kinds of IPs, just to give you an idea that what all can be protected as intellectual property. Now coming down to specifically to what a patent is. So basically, if I invent a new process, a new product, which can be for manufacturing anything, can be protected, and I have a right, a monopoly right on it. In India, of course, it's a very territorial right. I cannot have, if I have a patent in India, I cannot get that right in US. I have to have a different patent in all other jurisdictions. So it's a territorial right, which I have to help the government gives me that right to only I have the right to make or produce that product or perform that process. Now, before I go into this, you must be thinking what kind of things can be patented if I go into the biotech kind of claims. So if you consider what, if you see, if you, one of your subject I'm sure is immunology, or you would be studying that in third or fourth year. So immunology, you study various kind of vaccines. That vaccines may be uh, for say streptococcus pneumonia, or it could be for diphtheria, or it could be for tetanus, or things like that. Now, there could be a vaccine composition and a claim for that. I'm not sure how many of you have a smaller sibling or something like that, or you must have heard that there is a vaccine for DPT. Believe me or not, there is a patent for a hexavalent vaccine, which comprises of DPT and IPV, which is polio, and two more hepatitis B and HBV. Yeah. All these six, they have a patent in India. So, and there is also a patent for pneumonia vaccine, which is which is a Prevnar, if you know the name, brand name. If you have a elder sibling or some cousin who has a small child, just ask them if you have been, they have been vaccinated with Prevnar or with hexavalent diphtheria vaccine or something like that. All these things are used in common day-to-day life, but they do have a patent granted to companies like Sanofi and Pfizer and things like that. So if you can have a patent for a vaccine can have the antigens which are linked, and those, they can have a specific composition and they can produce some kind of results. You, all of you know that vaccines ultimately help you in gaining immunity against a disease, but what exactly that vaccine is, that composition is, you can have a patent for that. You can also have a composition for say some herbal composition which can be used for tooth cleaning. The first example here, if you see, is a synergistic composition, which comprises all kind of herbal components, and in what percentage they are included is also provided. And this is nothing else but a herbal composition of a toothpaste. So if you look at it, you must be thinking that there are so many herbal compositions, so many herbal toothpastes that you use, but you might not realize that they have a patent behind them. Similarly, if you see the second claim, it is an immunogenic composition, nothing else but a vaccine which helps you protect against streptococcus pneumonia. And all these are live examples, which these are patents which are actually existing. Similarly, you can have, let's now talk about some other field. So if you have a amylase, all of us know that there are various kinds of amylases which are available in the industry. There are various kinds of amylases which are used in detergent industry, which are used in manufacturing industries, which are used in pharmaceutical industries. Now, you don't use amylases, you isolate them and you don't use them directly, because those are not commercially friendly. Those are not that can be commercially directly used, or they do not have that much of efficiency. So usually you have a sequence of an amylase, and suppose you realize that one of the sequence can be removed, one of the amino acid can be removed, changed to a new amino acid, and that variant, suppose, is more stable, has higher efficiency, is a more productive amylase, and things like that. You make different new kinds of amylases, and those are called mutant amylases. I'm sure you must have studied all of these things, or you are studying these things in your course in biotechnology. So these amylases can be protected. A simple claim of such an amylase is there, which is basically that at the 160, there is a sequence of 300 sequences, and at that, in those sequences, there would be, I'm sorry, at the 165th position, there is a mutation. So this is a kind of claim and things that are protected under the act. So you can have a product claim, a process claim. And these are just examples that I wanted to show you, that how you can relate your biotech to a legal industry, to patent protection industry, people think that, how can a biotech degree help you in understanding patents, or why are we studying IPR, or what is the need of studying IPR? So whenever there is a patent, it's written in a very technical language. If I will not understand what a mutant, what is an amylase, what is an alpha amylase, how are mutants created, what is the kinds of different amylases, I will never be able to understand this claim, or how it was produced, and what are the effects that it is achieving. So for me to read that patent specification, which gives everything, all the details of these amylases, I need to have a basic understanding of the technology behind it. And that is why usually people who are dealing with patents, who are dealing with designs of such things, are usually technical people. They do have as well, but they're usually technical people. So these were just examples to make you understand that, what kind of biotech inventions can be patented. Now just going back to what is the process of filing a patent and collecting information and things like that. So basically, suppose I have an invention. Let's consider a simple example of some amylase only. I was in my lab, I created an amylase with some variation, say at position 165. And I thought that, this is producing better results in laboratory. I did also try certain kind of experiments. I have the sequence, complete sequence. There are the changes which are there in the amylase that also I'm aware of. I also tried to find if there are certain sequences like this, and I find that no, these things are not available. Then I should definitely file a patent for this. Now, the first step in all these things is filing a patent application. For filing a patent application, what you need is you need to collect all the technical information. So like you write your thesis paper or your project reports in a similar fashion, like you have your experimentation, things like that, you also have to file a patent application. It's just it's a in a slightly different language, so that there are some legal compliances, but it's more or less in the similar fashion. There is a field of invention, there is the background, there is a summary of what you're doing, there is a detailed description, there are examples that you performed, the sequences that you used, and things like that. All those details have to be there in that patent specification. One additional thing is there is the claim. Claim is nothing but what you are exactly claiming, because you cannot be claiming what is the background of the invention. What you have made, that particular amylase, is what you can claim. So that is an additional thing which is there in the patent specification that you file. Now, after you file that patent application, there are certain formalities which the patent office does. There's a publication of that. Then you file a request that, please examine my application. I have filed a patent application. So the patent office will see if it is worthy of a patent being granted or it should not be granted. So the patent office will issue an examination report. They will say that, your invention is something which is known. It is nothing which is new. Or it is something which is very obvious. I would have done it. Anybody would have done it. So they will issue an examination report which you have to answer. If you are able to overcome the objections which the examiner has raised, you are granted a patent. Right? So there is a filing stage. You have to examine your application, and after the application examined, you can have the application granted. Once the application is granted, you have a 20-year rights from the date you filed the application on that particular subject matter. So that amylase which I claimed, nobody else can make that amylase without taking some license from me or paying some fees to me. Nobody else in the market can manufacture that amylase or that vaccine or that herbal composition or that vector or whatever which I have a patent for. So what exactly does the examiner examine? When you're filing an application, the examiner will see 10 things. Should I grant an application? Should I not grant that patent? Of course, they cannot grant a patent to something which is already existing. So they check few criteria, some of them which are written over here. Whatever you're claiming has to be new. They cannot. it cannot be something which was already existing. So you have to show that the amylase that you're claiming with a mutation at position 165, maybe that where a tyrosine has been replaced with an aniline. So that mutation was never existing in any research paper, in any publication, in any or as a commercial product in the market. It did not exist. Then you also have to show that it was non-obvious. Non-obvious essentially means that, you know, in my day-to-day laboratory work, I would not have tried making this mutation. So basically, it's very obvious to make a mutation. It's considered obvious basically, because obviously when you have an amylase, you say, or you have a vaccine, you say, it is obvious for somebody to, you know, change something and try and see what kind of effect does it produce. So that change should be something that somebody would not have expected. Maybe that change is producing stability, but nobody expected in that complete amylase. Everybody thought, you know, that this particular amino acid was very internal in some groove inside the 3D 4D structure, and it will never affect the stability. But you have made it, you have shown it that that particular amino acid which you changed showed that stability, and it would not have been very obvious for somebody who's working in the field, and therefore it is non-obvious. So these are the kind of things that you reply to in the examination report to overcome those objections. You also have to show that that amylase can be used in industry, it can be made in industry, and things like that, to basically overcome those objections in the examination report, and then you are finally granted a patent for that. Now there are certain things, like I told you, if I considered biotechnology or chemistry or pharmaceuticals, there are certain things that cannot be patented. They cannot be patented, mostly like you consider US grants everything under the sun, but India does not grant everything under the sun. The reason is that we are a developing country, and we have to be very careful in what we grant monopoly to. We cannot grant a monopoly to a method of treatment. That is something a doctor performs. We cannot, we have to give a treatment to all, one and all in our community, and we cannot give a monopoly or a right to one doctor who has invented that treatment to give that treatment. He can be encouraged for that in 10 other fashions, but he cannot have a monopoly for 20 years for only performing that treatment. So there are certain things, because we are a developing economy, because we are a farmer specific economy, because we are so agricultural dependent, we cannot grant patents to plants, to animal husbandry or animal related things, and that's why we have kept certain things out of the purview of what can be granted a patent. So there are certain, it's basically under section 3 of the Patents Act if you read, but that's too technical. But there are certain things for which a patent cannot be granted in India. And I'll just make you go through that and give you certain examples related to the biotech industry so that you can relate to it. Suppose the inventions which are frivolous or which are contrary to natural laws. All of us know that there cannot be a machine which has 100% efficiency. Such a machine is against principles of physics, which is against principles of efficiency, and cannot exist. So if somebody says that I have made a machine which is 100% efficient, that cannot be granted a patent, because we all know that it is against the well-established natural laws. It is against the laws which are existing. Then again, we cannot grant patents to something which are whose intended use is against morality. All of us know that a lot of research in biotechnology goes for with regard to stem cells, how embryonic stem cells can be used, how stem cell can help prevent cancer and things like that. All of us are aware of this, are studying this, or have already studied this. But there are certain guidelines provided by Department of Biotechnology relating to how a stem cell can be used, which kinds of stem cells can be used. So that kind of invention is still okay. But if you are trying to harm the embryo or things like that, which are not ethically not allowed in India, or any invention which will relate to such things which are against morality or against against our culture, against our society, we will not do that. Suppose I file a patent application on how to open the lock of a house or how to conduct a robbery. I will not be granted a patent for that because it's something which is against morality, something which is not worthy of a patent protection. So there are certain other things, some things which are isolated from nature. If you suppose isolate a bacteria from the soil, it's very difficult to obtain a patent in India because there's something which is isolated from nature. You really do not get a patent. But yes, if you modify a bacteria, or if you modify a fungus, or if you modify a virus so that it can be useful in certain ways, if you modify a bacteria such that it can be used with a fertilizer and be very helpful to the crop, then you can have a patent. But if you just isolate a bacteria which can be used with the fertilizer, no, you might not get a patent for it because it's something which is isolated from nature. Or you claim a patent for an iron ore that you found in somewhere, you cannot have a patent for that because that's a natural resource and something that was already existing in nature. Similarly, something which was already known, and you find, suppose, a new use of that substance, you find that a salt of that substance is a better something, you cannot have a patent for that. Suppose a simple example, if you take, you have a paracetamol, everybody knows that it's used for fever or something like that, and you find out that that paracetamol can be used for treatment of cancer. So you will not have a patent for that because paracetamol was already available in the market and it was only a new use of that paracetamol that you found out. So you cannot have a patent for that new use. Or suppose you already knew that, we all know that mostly drugs are given in the form of a salt. So a hydrochloride salt or a sulfate salt or something like that. It basically makes them more available in the body. They can be absorbed easily and things like that. So if you're already using an hydrochloride salt and you feel that, a sulfate salt of that particular drug is a little better in terms of ingestion and things like that, you will not get a patent for that because you can't have patents for a salt or ester or things like that for things which are already existing in the market. Till you're not able to show that, there is a very enhanced efficacy in terms of its effect on the body, till then you cannot have a patent for that. So basically, if you're, suppose the lemon was there, the sugar was there, the salt was there, you cannot have a patent for a lemonade till you don't show that the lemonade was something which is very different or very unique, which nobody would have expected. So suppose, let's see that there was an antigen for diphtheria, there was an antigen for pertussis, and there was an antigen for typhoid. And everybody knew that DPT could be given. And they can, when given, those antigens were ingested in the body, they could give some kind of protections against diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. Now, what you did is you combined all these three in one vial and you gave them in one injection, and it could protect against all three: diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. Now, this is something which is very obvious. Okay, if you expect that, एक निमोसिलिड है जो कि will be very good for me अगर मैं उसको बुखार में खाऊंगी, एंटीबायोटिक की तरह काम करेगी, और with a paracetamol. Now I can take them separately also, I can give them in one medicine also, and the same effect will be achieved. So as long as a 1+1 effect is being achieved, I cannot have a patent for that. I need to show that it's 1+1, 3 that I am being able to achieve. So suppose I'm combining two medicines or two kind of antigens, and I'm trying to achieve a result which is much, much, much better than I can take them individually, then I can have a patent for this. But just combining the two, I cannot have a patent for that. Similarly, like I told you, any medical, surgical, diagnostic, therapeutic, anything of this sort, is not patentable. Of course, you can have a patent for a pharmaceutical drug, you can have a patent for a diagnostic kit, but you cannot have a patent for how you use it, because that is something which the doctors will do, which the nurses will do, and we cannot have a right over how to perform a treatment or how to diagnose something. Similarly, like I told you, plants, animals, all these things cannot be protected. You cannot have rights over this, even if it is something like Dolly, which has been recombinantly created. You cannot have rights over animals. The only thing that can be protected under the act can be microorganism. You can have a patent for a virus, a bacteria, a fungi, a yeast, or any other microorganism. Of course, they should not be isolated from nature. Anything that you have created in lab and you're able to show some kind of advantage associated with it, you can definitely have a patent for this. Computer program per se cannot be patented. You develop a bioinformatic tool which is run on a program, that cannot be protected. Any presentation of information, any literary or artistic work, because there is copyright protection for that, cannot be protected under a patent. Any topography of an IC cannot be protected because ICs are already protected under certain other act. Any traditional knowledge cannot be protected. If you must have read certain time back, there was a news that in US there have been a lot of applications which are being filed, which are relating to turmeric, the advantages of turmeric and ginger and things like that. And all of us very well know that these are parts of our traditional knowledge in India. And there is specifically a section which prohibits grant of anything which is traditional knowledge. In fact, the research departments in India, DRDO and things like that, they have collected all these traditional knowledge in Upanishads and things like that, because they were not available in non-English or non-Hindi languages. So these have been translated into English and Hindi and have been published and given to US patent offices and European patent offices, that you cannot be granting patents to such things, because such things have been existing in India for a long time, and you cannot be granting patents to these traditional knowledges. So there is a specific section in the Indian Patent Act which prohibits grant of such traditional knowledges, traditional knowledge which is because there is so much traditional knowledge in India, specifically in Ayurveda and Upanishads and things like that, that we need to protect those. So these are the claims which I've already shown you. There can also be claims of the sequence. How you must be thinking how sequence are written. So there is a different. Suppose there are 15-20 sequences that you worked with in your invention. So all those sequences have to be given a sequence number. So they can be a sequence 1, a sequence 2, a sequence 3, a sequence 4, and maybe then you modified sequence 4 into a new sequence 5. So all these sequences have to be listed with your specification that you file at the patent office, and you can claim those sequences. Maybe I can claim a sequence ID number 5 which I have created by modifying sequence ID number 4. So all these sequences of DNA, RNA, of your amino acids, protein sequences, all these sequences can be claimed if you have created them by certain modifications, or you have created your own promoter, say for a plant biotechnology experiment, or you have yourself created a terminator sequence, or you have yourself created a sequence which will help transmit a signal or something like that in the sequence that you're finally creating, or you have created a composition which can be used as a fertilizer and it works very well in promoting plant growth, that can have a patent protection for. Or if you create, suppose, I'm not sure. Most of you must have studied BT cotton. That technology is owned by Monsanto in India. It's now Bayer actually. That technology is patent protected. So it's only Monsanto who manufactures and sells There are other seed companies also which are dealing with BT cotton. Bacillus thuringiensis was inserted into that cotton hybrid. But that particular hybrid was first created by Monsanto, and Monsanto has the right for that. And all other companies and all other are their licenses, and they pay a fees to Monsanto for making that BT cotton or growing that BT cotton in the field. So it was after BT cotton was introduced into the market that the cotton production was 150 times higher than what it was initially. So all of us know the technical phenomena behind this. The Bacillus thuringiensis gene was inserted into the cotton plant to make it insect resistant, so that it could be protected with bollworm and things like that. So there is a particular sequence from Bacillus thuringiensis which was taken, which was prefixed with a sequence which makes sure that this is transcribed into the particular portion of the leaves of the bacillus of the cotton plant, which helps in there is a particular sequence, and that sequence has a claim and a patent which is owned by Monsanto. So there are different varieties of patent claims and different kinds of inventions, different kind of things which you can think which can be prevented and protected by patents. So I think that's all from me for just an introduction. If there is something that you people wish to ask, please feel free. If there's something that you wish to know, something in more detail, because this is something which is very basic. I have not gone into detail on how you should write a patent. This was just to show, because everybody thinks, what could you actually file a patent for in a biotech industry? What could be protected? Can I have a patent protection for a sequence? Can I have a patent protection for a process that I use for for making a new enzyme or for performing something in lab? For a chemical person, you can still understand that if you create a new drug which has a specific chemical formula, you can protect that in a patent. But biotech being a new industry, people usually do not know that what can be protected, what are the things, what are the criteria that need to be considered. So I just gave an overview of what kind of IPRs are there. And specifically, if we go to patents, there are, you believe me, there are a huge number of companies that are filing an application, and there are so many different kind of patents. RNA, DNA, polynucleotide, polypeptide, variants, vectors, you name it that you're studying, and there are patents for that.
Okay, so students, now the forum is open for the question answer.
Hello,
You can stop sharing the screen so that we go to the normal.
Just a second.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
Yeah.
Ma'am, how long does patent production last in our country or in every country? Is a patent valid in every country? If if anybody has invented a patent in India, it's gonna be valid in other countries like any other?
See, a patent, first of all, how long it can last? It can last for 20 years from the date I file a patent. So suppose I file in 2012, my patent was granted in 2015 because there is some gap there. So I will have my patent protection from 2012 to 20 years, that is 2032.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a patent, can I have a right in other countries? No, you cannot. If I file a patent in India, so you have given a 12 months time to file in other countries. Suppose I first file in India, I file an application. I can file that same application in Europe, US, Europe, China, Japan, Korea, whichever country I feel like, which I feel that my invention will be useful, or I can commercialize my invention, suppose in US. My market is in US. So I can file that patent application in India. Within 1 year, I'm given a 1 year time period. within 1 year, I can file that same patent application in other countries as well. So if I'm granted a patent in India, I have the right in India. If I'm granted a patent in US, I have the right in US as well. But if I'm not filed in other jurisdictions, I do not have any right anywhere. Suppose I file in US and US refuses my application that no, I cannot grant a patent to it. I do not have any right in US as well.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
So, ma'am, there is kind of no universality of patent, is it?
No, there is no universal rule. No.
Okay.
Mostly some of the criterias are same. Everybody you need that your invention should be novel. Everyone needs that your invention should be inventive. It should not be obvious for somebody. But there are various other criterias which every patent office sees. See, for me, something could be very easy. It might not be that easy for somebody else. So obviousness is something which is very, very, very personal. And there are certain rules for determining obviousness, but at various times examiners go wrong. At various times, some patent offices are very strict. For instance, I will say Europe is 10 times more stricter than US. There are a lot of patent applications which are granted in US, which are refused in Europe, because Europe is very, very, very strict when it comes to granting patents.
Japan is also very strict, ma'am.
Japan is strict, but Japan is now coming out as a very good patent office. Japan and China. Japan usually refuses applications on the ground that they are insufficient, specifically biotech inventions, because it's very difficult to define a biotech invention in words. You cannot actually define a bacteria in words. You usually have to make a deposit that, this is the bacteria that I have defined. So mostly Japan is very strict in terms of sufficiency requirement, that how well you have defined your invention. You're not able to define your invention. But Europe is very strict with regard to obviousness kind of criteria.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Shrishi?
if suppose,
Yeah.
ma'am, if suppose some country invents a very important invention and other country rejects it, so is there any platform we can complain? I mean, other countries can reject it for their personal benefit.
Usually patents are not filed by countries. It's usually individuals or companies that are filing those patents. So it's not it's never company against company. See, even in India, there have been a lot of debates about, US companies having monopoly, because see, at the end of the day, we all have to accept that the kind of inventions, the kind of research going on in US and in Europe are much higher than what is presently going on in India, and there are a lot of patents which are there from US MNCs in comparison to what are there in terms from Indian MNCs or Indian research companies, or even in DRDO or DBT or things like that. So there's always debate, that this monopoly being created by US companies is harming us. But we also have to see in this respect that those patents are published in India, those research papers are available to India, and India is able to move from a developing country towards a developed country from the knowledge which is available from these papers. Now, as far as things, so it's never country to country, there are issues like that, but it's always a company which has filed a patent in some other country. And suppose I file a patent application in India and Indian Patent Office refuses that application. There are ways, there are means. You can file a review application, you can file an appeal, you can go to the writ court. There are various ways and means available. Not only in India, even in Europe, you can file an appeal. Say that the decision is wrong. Here and here, the examiner has gone wrong. So those ways and means are there.
Ma'am, anyone could file a patent, or the person should have a background of that. Like if I patented for a medicine, then I should be related to any biology background, then only I can patent.
No, it's nothing like that. If you have invented something, I'm sure you have knowledge of that. You don't need a degree for that.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other question? Okay, I think it was a very interesting session, Geetika. Thank you so much for providing them a basic insight and telling them the difference between various types of patents. I think you should give me your email ID to the students here so that any query they have, they can contact you directly. And they are more comfortable with the alumni as compared to any other industry person. So they'll
Sure,
be glad to share their queries with you.
I'll share it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.
Everybody.